Imagine it's the year 2008 and you're Meryl Streep. First of all, congratulations on being Meryl Streep. And you've just starred in Mamma Mia, an instant classic that broke box office records and introduced Pierce Brosnan's vocal talents to the world.
Whatever happened to our love?
People are asking you for a follow-up, so you team up with the director again to give the people what they want. A biopic about Margaret Thatcher having dementia. Today we're going to look at, in my opinion, one of the worst Oscar wins of all time. A movie so bad that when I watched it for the first time, I very quickly came to the conclusion that everyone involved in making it was a psychopath. And throughout all of this, I'm going to get to the bottom of how Meryl Streep won her third Oscar. And just a quick caveat before we get into this, I love Meryl Streep. I definitely agree with the consensus that she's one of the best actors of all time, and many of her performances have resonated with me deeply. I just think for this one particular performance, she might deserve jail time. So let's talk about the film The Iron Lady. The whole thing is framed by an older Margaret suffering from dementia and looking back on her life. So we get to see an older Margaret struggling with her condition while also seeing the story of how she rose to power. An unrecognizable Meryl Streep plays Margaret, Jim Broadbent plays her husband, Phoebe Waller-Bridge plays her assistant, and Olivia Colman plays her daughter. This is probably the most insane performance that everyone involved has ever given, particularly Olivia Colman, who looks and sounds like this.
But I've spoken to him and he can fit you in tomorrow.
Tomorrow. I'm also very obsessed with this necklace slash piece of machinery that she wears. It's hard to really give a plot summary of this movie because it is just kind of Margaret Thatcher's life story. You see a few prominent political moments of her time in power and her struggling with being the only woman in the room. I have to say the dementia storyline in this is so over the top that it does kind of come across as offensive. And the portrayal actually managed to make me feel sorry for the real Margaret Thatcher, which is something I never thought was possible.
Oh, you have an eyelash. Oh? Yeah, make a wish.
And at one point she also imagines her husband doing a racist impression.
You look ridiculous.
Boss lady no like?
No, Dennis, boss lady no like.
Which I don't really know what to make of. The main thing that bothers me about this movie is that it focuses on the ways that Margaret is discriminated against for her gender. But the film doesn't really seem that interested in who she was beyond her gender. For example, one major plot point of the film involves her directing the British side of the Falklands War. We don't really learn much about the political background of the war or why Margaret is so intent on keeping the islands under British control. And the only takeaway from the war, in which hundreds of people died, seems to be that women can be warmongers too. In what is supposed to be the most girl boss moment of the film, she also compares being a woman to fighting and dying in a real war.
When one has been to war.
With all due respect, sir, I have done battle every single day of my life.
But it does have this iconic line that I'm definitely going to start quoting in my everyday life.
Now, shall I be mother?
And I know what you're probably thinking, what right do you have to criticize the Meryl Streep? Well, now is probably a good time to let you know that I have also portrayed Margaret Thatcher. I dressed up as her for my friend's costume party once, which produced this insane image of me giving my friend a birthday cake while dressed as Margaret Thatcher. So I'm just saying, I know what it's like to be Margaret. But anyway, there are so many elements of Margaret Thatcher's time in power that could be interesting to explore from her perspective, but the film doesn't delve into any of them. For example, her conflict with the IRA comes up at times, but it never really delves into how she deals with the conflict, and all you really see are the moments where it boils over, particularly in this one scene, which I think is the most unintentionally hilarious scene of any film.
Day, darling. 10 to 3, for God's sake.
Oh, I know. I'm coming, DT.
Come on.
Nearly there.
The first time I watched this, I was like, also everything about this one shot in particular just kills me. Like, why is it in fake slow-mo? Why do we just hear her weird wheezing? Why does it look like she's just been woken up in the middle of the night by the doorbell? And why is this her husband's reply?
My shoes!
stupid. In real life, Thatcher had a complex relationship with the IRA. While she publicly refused to give in to their demands to be treated as political prisoners, privately she negotiated and offered concessions to them. But you would never know that from watching the film. So my question is, how did Meryl Streep win an Oscar for a role that for the first time in human history managed to be racist towards British people? Well, if you pay attention to the Oscars, you'll know it's far from the first time they've done something like this. The Academy has been handing out Oscars to movie stars wearing prosthetics to portray real-life people for decades. Basically, for the last 30-ish years, a transformative performance like this has been a surefire way to win an Oscar. Nicole Kidman famously wore a fake nose in The Hours to portray Virginia Woolf.
Alrighty. By a nose, Nicole Kidman.
And Charlize Theron won for being unrecognizable in Monster. And the transformation doesn't just extend to fake noses. Hilary Swank won for playing a trans man in Boys Don't Cry. The evil Jared Leto won for playing a trans woman. And many straight men have won for playing gay. It all feeds into this idea that transformation is the highest form of acting. When people talk about actors like Gary Oldman or Johnny Depp or Meryl Streep, they often say, oh, they could play anyone. And that brings up the question at the core of this. What is good acting? Well, for one, you could just ask Pierce Brosnan in Mamma Mia. But really, I don't think anyone knows. When I think about the performances that resonate most with me, they all communicate the emotional complexity of the character. Not just through big speeches or screaming and crying emotional moments, but through smaller expressions or unique line deliveries. It's all well and good to put on a wig and do a voice, but if I don't feel the humanity of the character, I really don't care. While Meryl does have a more flashy acting style, she's still capable of dialing in a more subtle performances, and these tend to be the ones that stand out for me the most. I also think the idea that good acting requires transformation tends to discount other performances that incorporate the actor's star persona, like J-Lo's performance in Hustlers. It also means that in general, more subtle performances often go unrewarded. Like the fact that Gary Oldman was nominated for playing the sedate George Smiley in Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy, but didn't win until his big, flashy performance as Winston Churchill in The Darkest Hour. Not only did Meryl transform for her role, she was also playing a famous historical figure at the center of the movie. In 2007, Helen Mirren won for doing the same thing in The Queen, and just the year prior, The King's Speech miraculously won 4 Oscars, including Best Actor for Colin Firth. There's no objective way to assess any art form, let alone acting. So if you're an Academy voter forced to choose between 5 performances, it's probably easier to just pick the one where you can at least say they accurately portrayed the real life person. Ultimately, while I do think the transformative aspect of these performances is definitely impressive, I think the line between caricature and nuanced portrayal has become a bit blurred over the years. While Meryl certainly looks and sounds like Margaret, I don't think the performance or the film itself reveals anything deeper about her. Now let's talk about the second factor, the campaign. While Meryl is the most Oscar-nominated actress of all time, she doesn't always put in an effort to campaign to win the Oscar. And campaigning is a really important part of winning the Oscar, even if you're Meryl Streep. You have to appear at events, do Q&As, convince everyone that it was really hard for you to play this role, and actually convince people that you deserve to win. And for this movie, Meryl did. She participated in the weird press events, she did the Q&As, and she even baked a cake for film critics. And I do have to wonder, what kind of cake did she make? Now, a big part of the Oscar campaign for this year was positioning Meryl as the underrated choice. And I know what you're thinking, how could Meryl Streep be underrated? Well, the campaign smartly pointed out that while Meryl was considered one of the greatest actresses of all time, she hadn't actually won an Oscar in 29 years. People also highlighted the fact that other supposedly less talented actors like Hilary Swank had the same amount of Oscars as Meryl Streep, which is totally not right? Don't hate me for saying this, but if you look at the films that Meryl did in those 29 years, I would say that The Bridges of Madison County and Doubt are the only two where she's truly doing some of her best work. But I'm happy for people to tell me that I'm wrong. I mean, I'll admit I haven't yet seen her Oscar-nominated performance in Music from the Heart. It also helped that Meryl picked up many of the precursor awards of the season, like the BAFTA and the Golden Globe, and she even received the prestigious Kennedy Center honors that year, which put a focus on her overall contribution to cinema, rather than just this one single performance. Another factor that led to her win were the other nominees in the category. Meryl was up against Michelle Williams for My Week with Marilyn, Rooney Mara for The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, Glenn Close for Albert Nobbs, and Viola Davis for The Help. Out of all of these performances, her closest competition was Michelle Williams, who picked up a bunch of nominations and a Golden Globe for her performance. But Meryl's underrated narrative was much stronger, and The Iron Lady was seen by many more people as well. The Iron Lady was a big hit, grossing $115 million on a $13 million budget, while My Week with Marilyn made $35 million on a similar budget. While Meryl definitely had a strong campaign, it wasn't without controversy. She faced a bit of blowback in the British press for the film's depiction of Margaret as confused and demented. But the controversy never really took off outside of the UK. There was also Emailgate, where the distributor was accused of breaching Academy rules by sending out an email that highlighted her performance. And this point brings me to the elephant in the room here, Harvey Weinstein. The Iron Lady was produced by his company, and Harvey played a big role in getting Meryl the Oscar. Her Golden Globe win for the movie gave us this moment that is viscerally cringeworthy in retrospect.
I just want to thank my agent, Kevin Uvain, and God, Harvey Weinstein.
Weinstein was famously the most aggressive Oscar campaigner the industry had ever seen, ever since he pulled off the coup of securing Shakespeare in Love Best Picture over Saving Private Ryan. Just the year prior to Meryl's win for The Iron Lady, Weinstein had pulled off another coup at the Oscars, where his aggressive campaigning led The King's Speech to take home multiple awards, even beating the favorite for the night, The Social Network, for Best Picture. And seriously, has anyone at all watched The King's Speech since 2011? I don't think so. In fact, Weinstein campaigned so hard for The King's Speech that he even tried to get Queen Elizabeth to endorse the film, which never would have happened. I heard she was more of an Avengers gal herself. But he deployed the same tactics for The Iron Lady, highlighting the British prestige of the project and the idea that Meryl was overdue for a win. Let's not forget, this was the same year he also managed to get The Artist to win Best Picture, so getting Meryl Streep another Oscar probably wasn't that hard. So that's how Meryl won in 2012, but looking at her career since, I have to ask the question, what the hell happened? Her last major film released in cinemas was Little Women in 2019, and the last time she played a lead role in a major cinematic release was 10 years ago in The Post. This is all going to change with The Devil Wears Prada 2 in April this year, which is all but guaranteed to be a hit. But I do wonder, what happened to the time where you could regularly see adult dramas in cinemas starring Meryl Streep? I don't want to discount how hard it must be to be an older woman in Hollywood trying to find decent roles, but I'm sure Meryl Streep, of all people, is in a position to get films greenlit based on her involvement alone. Like, even something like Florence Foster Jenkins did pretty well at the box office for its budget. So I have to wonder, has Meryl stopped trying? Is she just happy to make lots of money and hang out with her boyfriend Martin Short on Only Murders in the Building now? Why is the greatest actor of all time on TV? If Meryl is watching this video, my message to her is this: please start making good movies again. We have enough people making slop. Ryan Reynolds has that covered. We don't need our greatest living actress doing it too. Meryl, get back on the horse and show these kids what real acting is. And I don't mind if she wants to do sequels. Let's do Silkwood 2. It would be huge. She does have a Joni Mitchell biopic on the horizon, so maybe she'll win another Oscar for that. Although the whole project does seem like Taylor Swift shade to me. So there you have it. Thank you so much for watching. If you think Meryl deserves an Oscar for a different performance, please let me know in the comments. Or if you have any other Meryl films that you'd love to see a sequel for, I would love to know about that too. Bye!